All right, everybody. Welcome to lesson 4. I'm not sure if this will go to 4 or 5. I think we'll do one more uh, advanced kind of tools, maybe in number 5. But this will be the last lesson to create the basic box. So today we're going to talk about adding text to it. We'll talk about adding some fillets or chamfers to kind of smooth out the edges of the box. And yeah, so typically, what you do for the fillets, which is this command up here, or chamfers, it kind of shows you what they are. So fillets are rounded edges. Chamfer is basically, it's like you can do the default is a 45-degree angle, but you can change that as well. So you can make it steeper or shallower. Typically, you want to add those last, because otherwise, as you go back, like if you wanted to edit like a sketch or something and edit some geometry, but you created the fillets really early on, and you projected some fillet geometry maybe or something. It can make things blow up. So typically, it's like the final touch. So first things first, adding text. Now it's pretty easy because it's basically all you're going to do is do a sketch. So we're going to do it on the top of this box. So we're going to click sketch. We're going to click on this region, and we're going to hit the N key to go normal. Kind of reposition it. So when you have your sketch tools, you'll have this text tool right up here. So this guy, when you click it, it just wants you basically to create a box like I just did. And then it gives you a couple options for fonts. Well, they actually added some. And you can bold it, mirror it, and then type your text here. So we'll call it treasure box. Click. Okay, so that came in really big. That happens sometimes because the box, it defaults to whatever the height of your box is. So if let's say I did this again, I made it really small. So it's going to make the height of that box I just drew the size of my text. So let's try this treasure box again. And sometimes you got to just play around with it. There. So that was probably more or less the size that we probably actually would want. Now what you can do is you could do you could do one box for treasure, one box for box, but we'll just leave these as one. Then I'll put this one down here, and I'll put my name up there. So I could go in here and hit dimension, and I could start to add, let's say I want to make this 0.5 inches exactly tall. And it's still blue, so it means I can move this sucker around everywhere, right? So let's say I want to center this up. So what I would do is draw a line. Actually, it already gives you a center line right there. So I'm just going to take the coincident tool, click on that center line. I'm going to click on this plane. So this is a plane, but in this top-down view, it's basically just a line. Notice how it moved it over. So now if I hit the D key for dimension, I can check out what these dimensions are. They should be the same. So if you see a grayed out dimension like that, that means it is a reference dimension. So it's just like I already had defined it at 0.5. So this is a duplicate dimension and it doesn't do anything. Sometimes for like what I did here for the 0.34 and the 0.34, it's good if you want to verify to double check things are even. So now if I want to move this guy, let's see, if I click and drag it, I still have 1 degree of freedom, meaning I can move it up and down. So let's position this guy, this line, and that line, let's say it's 0.5 inches off the bottom. Notice how everything turned black? It means I have a fully defined sketch. So we're going to do one more text box. This one will say Chris's. Enter. Now for this one, I'm not going to worry too much about centering it up and everything. It's close. So we'll call that good. Again, you don't have to necessarily define everything in your sketches. If it just depends on the importance. So if this guy, this Chris stays right there, and I go back, but I'm like, oh man, I really want to change the size of my box. So let's go back to this beginning sketch, the box size sketch, and I make this 2 inches and click OK. Notice how the Chris's text box doesn't work anymore. And this box, or the treasure box text, is moved up. So what I could do is go back in here, edit this. I could say, all right, let's bring this down. Let's make that 0.25. But because I didn't define this one, the Chris's text box, it doesn't move. So that's the power of, dimensioning and constraining things. But it depends on, what are the chances that you're going to be changing that. So I'll go back and just break this what it was. I get 3. Okay, so let's go to our Extrude tool. Since it was all created in one sketch, it wants to do all the regions and not just, you notice I hover over it, it's highlighting them all. Let's see. So I'm going to cancel that. I'm going to go back and delete that other one. So edit sketch. I'll delete this one. Hit delete. Okay. So we could do this as an extrusion so that it's raised, right? We wouldn't want to go too high, maybe 1/10 of an inch, 0.1. Or we could click on remove and we could go down into our box. Click OK. For stuff like 3D printing, it's probably better to do into the box like that because it's less likely to get knocked off because 3D printing isn't super strong all the time. So like if you bumped it, you might knock off the apostrophe or part of the letters. And so this is probably the safest route. And so let's say I wanted to finish this guy up by adding some fillets. Do circular. You could play around with some of these other settings. Typically you're doing circular ones though. So I can select multiple lines and you can see it's starting to create the fillets. So let's say I wanted to do more fillets like on the edges and stuff. I typically will try to keep a fillet separate from other fillets. So like if I edit this, I could start adding, all these fillets to it. Whoops. Yeah, you can actually click on surfaces. It will do that. We didn't really want that time though. I was just trying to get these edges. So you could do something like that. I tend to break it up into multiple fillets and just try to keep, the edge fillets, if I want to change those all to be one size, and then I want to change all the edge for the top to be one size. Typically, that's what I would do. It just means if I have to go back and change it on one, it's easier to do. You could also do these chamfers. So if I wanted to, let's say, do a chamfer on top of my box, all I had to do was click on that one line and it was like, oh, well, I assume you want to do the rest of it. So it kind of did it all for me. It's kind of an interesting look. We could even add text to the bottom, right? So we could add, I don't know, whatever secret message you'd want on the bottom. We could do it on the sides. We could hide the lid and do it on the inside. Could do that as well. Now, one thing, if I was going to fillet the edges here, I would want to do it on the inside box too. So this guy. But I'm not gonna worry about that now. So yeah, so this would be how you would create the box and add some text and some fillets and some chamfers. I guess this is gonna be another part because next I'm gonna get into how to export this as a 3D printing file. And I think Another part would be fun is to how to create or trace images if you want to do some clip art images on this box. So we'll do those in a couple other parts. So thanks for watching. Hopefully I'm not too boring.